So get started. So welcome everyone to sign in, and thank you for registering and taking your time to sit in this session. In this session, I'm going to go through Navisworks demonstration. The Navisworks demonstration will focus on is mainly on the clash detection side. And stuff I'm going to show you will basically be best practices in your clash detections. So the way that I'm using the content I'm using is content put together by a gentleman called Michael Ward, who's at Autodesk University a couple of years ago. So I'll be using his screencast to show you the best practice for setting up your coordination models. And all the content that is here hasn't really been shared online appropriately, and I hope you guys will benefit from this webinar. Okay, just before we get started, just introduce yourself. My name is Tabular, and I'm the head of BIM services at Baker Baynes. Before we get into it, I'll just quickly talk about what Baker Baynes is for those who don't know us. We are the fastest growing design and technology partner in South Africa, largest Autodesk Navisworks Gold partner. We specialize in AEC, process partner power manufacturing, safety, and simulation. But we also have an Autodesk CAM, which is formerly Belgium, reseller, an Authorized Training Center, and we also have other solutions that we provide, that we resell, or provide consultation for the company. The way the edge can look out for them is CAD heavy, which is this is on the CAD heavy platform, also authorized by Autodesk, and is a very useful method. Method. Okay, let me fix that.
Okay, so I got that. Let me sort that out. Is the sound a bit better now? I'm just gonna pause there. Please just indicate to me if the sound is a bit better. Okay, I've taken off the headset, right? So if there's a little bit of echo, I'm sorry about that. Just give me a second. I'm just gonna switch off the aircon for a second. Okay. Okay, guys. I think it must be a little bit better now. Just indicate to me if that sounds much better. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sydney. Right. Thanks, Jason. Okay, so let's just carry on. I'll just carry on from where I stopped. Thank you for notifying me. I was not aware that the sound was a bit muffled. Okay. Right. So just carrying on from where I stopped, I was just quickly introducing Baker Baynes. Right. What we believe in Baker Baynes, we basically believe in helping you design a better world. Right. And we're not designers, but we have a technological role to play in influencing the impact of design in today's changing world. We assist you in delivering a better project and a better product, right? For instance, in this webinar that we're doing today, this is just to assist you guys with your construction project to set up your clash detection or coordination models with your using best practices in the industry, right? And we also assist you in technology adoption to produce your good results, right? And technology is just a tool, but also with our experience, we can ensure it produces tangible results that impact the bottom line. But now our services methodology, we call it I Adopt, right? And it's basically just a framework, consultancy methodology to help you as our customers to adopt and utilize the software potential. Now this process take you through an assessment. We'll then from the assessment produce an educational plan following based on the results from the assessments, and then we'll do a little consult, setting up the template and your project for you. Right. Just very quickly, that's what a high overview of what it looks like, the method that we follow. But like I mentioned, you can see that a bit later. If you've signed in and the connection is a bit slow or you missed something, don't stress, because at the end of the session, you will receive this recording, right? It will be edited and fixed. So when you get it, it will be clean and clear with no any glitches, hopefully. Right. So in this webinar, I'm going to take you, and ignore that little first part, but you'll be able to set up tests with Clash Detective, implement effective clash grouping and filtering techniques, run effective model coordination meetings, and also use Navisworks efficiently. All right, I think we're ready to get started. And like I mentioned, if you missed anything, there will be time for question and answers, right? On your little chat thing on there, you can also type in questions as we go, and I will answer those I can before the question Q&A, but at the end of the session, I do have time for a Q&A, right? And I will also leave our details on the webinar, okay? Right, so firstly, you might notice on the screen, I've put in a G650 Gulfstream. It's a private jet. It's a beautiful machine. But at the end of the day, with this beautiful machine, you might ask yourself, why am I putting that there? And I always say, Navisworks does not coordinate construction projects, people do. The same way you have the most complex machines out there in the world, the most complex systems and processes out there, the only thing that makes those processes work is people. All right, so the session I want to take you through will give you best practices, but just bear in mind as well, your people will need training for that. Right. Now, what is Navisworks? You might ask yourself. For those who don't know, it's a project review software that allows us to federate and analyze models to improve coordination and communication of designs. Models analyzed for construction programming, logistic planning, and cost surety. Right? And Navisworks does have the ability to link 3D geometry objects with databases, providing a starting point for asset management. Okay. Navisworks is not a modeling or authoring tool such as Revit or ArchiCAD. However, with that said, it can read over 50 different file formats brought into the software. Now, Navisworks also cannot modify original files, right? This is what makes it the best tool to use for coordinating, right? And it also is not a photorealistic navigation tool. Okay, there are other tools for that out there. Okay, there are 3 types of Navisworks that you get with the Autodesk solution. I'm going to start with the fully functional one, and that's Autodesk Navisworks Manage, right? And this gives you access to your simulation tool, quantifying tools, and also the clash detective tool. Okay. We then have Navisworks Simulate. Simulate has everything else except the clash detective tool, right? Most project managing companies, like construction companies, would purchase a Navisworks Simulate software instead of a Manage software. Manage would be purchased by your principal agents that are coordinating projects. And then lastly, we have Navisworks Freedom, right? And Freedom is just a free viewer. You can download it freely from the Autodesk site. And also when you install any other of your Navisworks Simulate or Manage, it will also include a Freedom free viewer as well. But there's a question out here. Question is, how much of the functionality is common to both Navisworks Simulate and Manage? Only everything else is the same except the clash detective, right? So the only difference mainly is just the clash detective. That's between Manage and Simulate. Okay. Okay. Right. Now, when you get started with a coordination model, the first step that we always encourage you guys to do now is to plan, right? And you need to put together what we call a BIM execution plan, right? Most clients and most projects out there do get started without any planning to go. And once a project is started, the project team just decides to start coordinating this file, right? Now, you can put together a document called a BIM Execution Plan. If you need links to that, I can share those with you. Right. Okay, I'll get back to the questions in a moment. Right. I saw your question, Sydney. Right. So before you start any coordination or any clash detection and stuff, you need to put together a BIM execution plan. Right. Now, the BIM execution plan contains how the project will be created or how the files will be authored, who will be in the file, who will be in the project as well, right? So you basically put together an overview and a scope of your project and also a methodology on how to put together this BIM execution plan. I will share links to examples of BIM execution plans out there, right? There are ones that, there's one that Autodesk puts together, but the best ones to use are the ones that are put together by the UK region, right? They are currently on BIM level 2 and moving on to BIM level 3 in a couple of years, right? And they've already started implementing BIM level 3 in some government projects. But I would definitely share those execution plans with you at the end of this webinar. Right. Now, once that has been placed together, then you need to understand the process of setting up a coordination model. And that's what the webinar is mainly based on. And I will be taking you through the steps and showing you the best practices out there in the industry. Right. Now, first thing you're going to see on your screen there is an interface of your Navisworks software. Right. And what you're seeing on the screen there is just Navisworks Manage. And I'll show you why. If you look where my cursor is quickly, you'll notice that it's got a clash detector, right? And that indicates to you that we are working on Navisworks Manage, right? If you look on the left, when I started working on Navisworks, no one told me what's an ideal screen interface, right? You'd find people obviously have a selection tree and then the working area, that's it, right? But what I'm showing you here is best practice on how to set up your Navisworks Manage interface. On the left is your selection tree. This basically assists you to navigate through the files that you have appended in your drawing, right, or uploaded in your drawing. You then have your selection set, right? You'll notice on the selection sets, I've got architecture, structural, and MEP and walls, and I will talk about those in more detail, okay? Then obviously you have your properties palette, and then you have your saved viewpoints, which are very important when setting up a coordination model, specifically when you're getting into meetings and you start using Navisworks for your coordination meetings as well. Okay. Then obviously at the top of the screen, you have your ribbon. Right. Now, the first step that you'll do when you're setting up a coordination file, firstly, before even appending these files, your files need to be all coordinated from your authoring tools. So everyone would have to be working from the correct coordinate on your tools. If this is not set up correctly from either Revit, right, from Revit, when you bring the files into Navisworks to append them, they will all be sitting in different positions, right? So it's very important in that BIM execution plan, you indicate which coordinates will be used as a project base point and for your internal shared coordinates, right? So you open up Navisworks, you'll see in a second, you're going to click on append and upload the different files that you'll be using for your coordination project, right? After you've set that up, uploaded the files, the best thing to do is to now create your project setup views, right? And these are the views that you'd use to easily navigate through the file, right, through the coordination model. And I will show you guys in a second how you would do this, okay? In your Navisworks application menu, right, there's a little options button, right? In there, you got viewpoint default options, and you need to ensure the following settings are checked, right? So if you click on options, you need to ensure the following settings are checked. You go under your options editor, go to interface. In your viewpoint defaults, you want to make sure Navisworks saves your views as you get to them, and you are also able to override materials from your authoring tools. Right, so those two settings are very crucial to set up your viewpoints. Right, now if you've worked in any authoring tools like Revit or AutoCAD, right, you'll notice that view cube and that little home button, right? So you need to set views for the following. Okay, this is just obviously high level. We haven't gone into the different clashes, right? So you need to set views for home. This will be a 3D home view, right? You then need to create a view for each discipline, supplier. You're working with suppliers. Then you ideally, if the project is not too complex, create a view for each level, right? And then if you, in your projects, you've got key areas, for example, like a plant room, or you got areas that has multiple services getting to them, then you need to save views like that as well. On the right of your screen there, that's a little example of what your views would look like. It will be a level breakdown. You're going to have all disciplines, architecture, structural, MEP. You're going to have your ramp, your plant room, and your WICs, etc., etc. Right. So ideally, that's the setup we should use for setting up views. Okay. What I'm going to show you now is just little steps, just a little tutorial taking you through the steps for creating these views. Okay, just give me a second. Just give me a second, guys. Right, like I mentioned, I will share all this information with you. Right. So what you're seeing on the screen here, what you're seeing on the screen here is a coordination model already appended for. So hope you guys can see the screen. Okay, perfect. Right, what you're seeing on the screen here is a project that's already been appended. On the right, I'll pause quickly as we go. On the right, you'll see on the viewpoints palette, you just simply go in there, you right click on that viewpoint palette, and you start creating new views. Right. So I'm going to click on Save Viewpoint. We're going to call that front, showing all disciplines. Right. And you then go and select all the views in there, hide everything there, and save viewpoint. That's it. Right. So that's very important. You first set up, hide the disciplines. In this case, I've got three models here. I've got an MEP model, an architectural model, and a structural model. So before I saved that view, right, I went in there, hid the MEP model, hid the structural model, and then right-click and saved the viewpoint. Okay, right. I'm going to do the same with the other disciplines, and then save viewpoint and call it structure. That's how simple it is, right? Gonna hide, just show mechanical, right click, save viewpoint, and then call that MEP. Right, you can see clearly there, it's now easy to navigate through the different disciplines without having to hide your views all the time, without having to go to the model, right click and hide and try to find the different models. Right, so we just changed the view. We're going to update our front view. You'll notice, as you can see on the screen, the views get updated. Now, to easily create your level view, we'll be using a section tool. I'm going to go to Viewpoint, Enable Sectioning, click on Alignment Tools, and Align to Surface. Select your surface, and then you can easily move your section plane, right? Once that section plane is moved, then switch it off, right-click on Save Viewpoint, and give that viewpoint a name. Right, as you can see, very easy to set up your viewpoint. You just need to create your view in your drawing, right? And then from there, just right click on your save viewpoint palette and then save your view. That's how easy it is. But there's a reason we do that. And the reason we do that for us to be able to navigate easily through the project. Now, as your coordination file grows, obviously you need to start creating additional views, right? And you can easily save them onto your project like that, okay? Right, excuse me, guys. The next step after you've set up your views is to save your selection sets. Now, selection sets are objects that you want to create clashes between. Now, this would save you time at the end when you start doing your clashes, where you, in this case, you want to do a clash between an architectural floor slab and a structural wall or architectural windows and columns. So this is where you then create your selection sets, right? You've got two types of selection sets. You've got static and you also have our dynamic selection set, okay? Now to do that on your home tab, you'll see there's I'll just put my cursor there. There's a select and search panel, and then in there you got a little find items command. When you click on find items, this little dialog box pops up, right? And in this dialog box, you're able to see your appended models, and then you basically create a filter to specify which categories or items you want to select or put in your selection set, right? Once that's done, you then basically save the search, right? I'm going to take you through a little tutorial for you to see that. Give me a second. Right, so like I mentioned, when I click on find items, when you've selected find items, right, you can still go into the model, as you see on the screen there, and click on object that you'd want to select. For example, I find this easier to do instead of trying to find the category and the property it falls under, right? So in this case, I wanted to create a selection set for structural walls. Right, so I click on the structural model, click on the wall, and on my properties palette, Navisworks will give me the name of that object, the type of object it is, and also additional information on it, right? You can then go click on category, specify which category you want to use. It's an item. Specify the property you want to use. In this case, you want to use type that equals, and then you go in there and type in 200 RC wall or the type of wall that you want to use. Again, click on find all, you right click on set, and you call that, you give that a name. Right, very simple. You select the object in the drawing, so go to your properties, get the parameter that you want to use, create your filter in your find items, find all the items in the coordination model, and then save the selection set. Right. In this case, we want to select a layer that equals specific level 13, and then click find all. In this case, we're finding walls that are only sitting on a specific level. You'll see at a later stage, in this case, we just deleted the conditions, right? And found a different type of wall. We're creating another different type of selection set. Same thing. We're going to use an item, specify you're going to use type equals, and then specify paste your wall type. And then you save the search. You'll now notice at the end, when we start doing this clash detectives, instead of just selecting different disciplines to create a clash detective from, or a clash detection from, we'll be using this selection set. I hope that was clear for you. I hope you guys understood that. So the first step, just a quick recap before I go into any clashes. Just a quick recap. First thing that you do is you need to plan, right? And the process for setting up a coordination model, the first step is to append the file, upload the files, make sure the files have the correct coordinates, right? Once that is done, right, you then go into your drawing and you create viewpoints. With those viewpoints, the viewpoints that you'd use, I'll just quickly show it on the screen again so you remember. Right, the default viewpoints that you'd show would be for your home view, for each discipline or supplier, each level, right? And then you also show your key areas. After setting that up to make your life easier as your coordinator is working, or you as a coordinator, you need to go in there and then create different selection sets, right? And selection sets can be generated by types of objects, by levels, as long as you know what you're creating, what you're doing coordinations with, as long as you know the disciplines you're using for your coordination. Right, now the next step is to go and start generating this clash detective. And what you're seeing on your screen, it's a typical view that you'll find from a clash report. On the left of your screen, you've got your clash detective dialog box with all the different tests that have been generated. At the bottom of your screen, this is where you get a list of your clashes, and they're listed according to their magnitude. What you're seeing on this screen here is clashes that have already been grouped. Right, on the right of your screen, this is what your drawing or coordination model would look like with the clashes from all the different disciplines. Now, what you're seeing in here, this clash report has already been grouped. Okay, right. Now, your clash detective tool is found in your ribbon, in your home tab, next to your timeliner and quantification tools, right? And there you'll see you got clash detective. Once you're ready to get started with your clash detective, you just simply click on the command, right? And you'll get this little dialog box that pops up. Now, obviously, in your case, when it pops up initially, it would be empty without any tests generated, right? Now, in this case here, we've got a list of different tests that have been generated, and I just want to take you through the interface. Now, at the top, you got your test name, right? And this will give you a list that a little exclamation mark that you're seeing on there indicates to you that there are still new clashes that haven't been addressed, right? At the bottom there, you've got add test, and that's a button that you click on once you want to start to create a new test, once you're ready to generate a new test, okay? I've seen, I don't know if you guys see this on your screen, you'll notice on there, there's like a report there between two disciplines, architecture versus structural, right? In that case, there's like 6,000 different clashes, right? And below that, as we reduce it, architectural model with structural floor, architectural model with structural columns, etc., etc. And then that just makes your clash report a bit more easier to deal with. However, on top of that as well, if you look on the next screen, you'll see there are rules that you can assign to your clash report. Right, I don't know how many people actually do this, but you are able to remove false positives from your clash report. So you can indicate on those rules what you actually want to check. Right, in this case, items where one item is in selection, set structural model, and the other item is in selection structural column, you don't want that to come up as a clash report. Right, items which are both in selection set structure, you want that to come up. Right, so these are different rules that you can create or specify when you generating your clash report. But this just makes your life a little bit easier when you generate that report at the end of the day. Right. Now the workflow, obviously we'll go through a video for this as well. Once you've started the test, you can, on the left of your screen there, you can select the model that you'd want to use. Right, that's selection A. Okay, and on the right of your screen, right, so on the left of your screen, you select the model that you want to use. On the right of the screen, you then go in there and specify either, you'll notice at the top that I've got standard settings, which is your 3 models that have been appended. On the right, I've changed this to sets. I'll show you in the video as well. And that allows us to go in and select this different selection sets that you would have set up previously to start generating your report. And then lastly, you go to settings and you're able to specify the tolerance of your clash report. In here, you're also able to do like a clearance check as well. Okay. You then simply click on Run Test. After you click on Run Test, Navisworks will then generate a report for you, listing all the clashes that it's found, and it would list them by magnitude. Right. On the right here, this is just settings that you can apply to your clash report. By default, you find item 1 would be in red, item 2 would be in green. However, you can still change those colors. It's best practice to always isolate items that you're not clicked on, right? And so you'd have the dim others switched on as well, right? At the top of your screen, I'll just quickly go through this. That's your clash report that's been created. It's set to old on here because it's been running and it's already been issued as a report to your project team. Now you've got clashes, a list of clashes, 1,188 in this case. Your new clashes in this case were 1,178, and then active clashes reviewed, approved, and resolved. Active clashes are clashes that have been issued and they're currently being worked on, right? Review clashes will then, where a consultant has gone in and checked whatever object needs to be fixed, okay? And then approved are clashes that are approved and they're allowed, and then resolved clashes are obviously clashes that have been resolved already. Right. At the bottom here, it's a list. You'll notice that 1,188 is an overall clash between 2 models, but at the bottom here is the clashes between the structural model and the different disciplines in that MEP file. Right. So as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, as you make your clash report or clash detection narrower, right, it's easier to then deal with the clashes that you have in the project, right? It is pointless to issue a clash report with 1,188 clashes in it, right? Okay, cool. Let me take you through this practically, right, and hopefully you'll understand it as we go. Right, so in this case, I clicked on Clash Detective. Just going to slow it down a bit. In this clash report, you'll notice as soon as I clicked on Clash Detective, I prefer, once again, working Navisworks on 2 screens where you can move your other palettes up the screen. You'll notice I have a whole lot of palettes on my screen, right? So we just keep our Clash Detective on the left. You're able to still see the model and you're able to still see your different palettes as well, right? Now, on the left, we're going to select the model. On the right, on selection B, we clicked on the drop-down arrow, changed it from standard, and we're setting it, we're going to place it on set. Now, once it's placed on set, this is where you're able to select that structural framing set, selection set, or that search set that you would have saved earlier. Understand? If you don't do this, you wouldn't be able to create a selection set. We kept the settings at default. I'm going to click on Run Test. As soon as you click on Run Test, you get a list of your different reports. And as you click on your clashes on the left, Navisworks just zooms into that clash. All right, I'm not sure if you guys noticed that. In this case here, if I just go back, if you look on your screen, if you set it to hide other, right, it is easier to see the clash, but most of the time you might not find yourself, you might not know where you are in the project, right? So hence we set it to dim the rest of the project, or set the rest of the project to wireframe, so you can easily find yourself, see where you are in your model. Okay. Awesome. After this, obviously, once you found your different clashes, you are able to save those views, right? So you can still go to saved viewpoints, create a subfolder for MEP versus structural framing clashes, and then start saving the views for those clashes, right? Trust me, when you get to your coordination meeting, it is easier to go through those views and discuss the clashes instead of going and finding them in your report. All right, I hope that made sense for you. Do we have any questions? Okay, I'm just going to carry on. Right. Right, so just very quick overview. I went through the setting up your models, setting up your viewpoints, setting up your search sets, and then we started creating a clash detection report, right? Now, what's best practice as well, what I've found very useful is to use grouping on your clashes. Now, you need to group all clashes in all common clashes into a single group. What I mean by that, you might find that you have a duct, like 5 different ducts clashing with a single wall, right? Now, a clash like that will be easier to deal with when it's grouped, right? So you basically click on it. In this case, once it's grouped, Revit will also see it as just a single clash instead of like 1,000 clashes, right? When you're grouping your clashes, you need to select elements or an element by system or proximity, and you can change the filter by selection setting to inclusive, right? So what that basically means, it means instead of just showing all clashes in your model, you need to show clashes where at least one clash item is selected, right? So for example, in that scenario there, we've got a duct clashing with beams, right? So one of those objects, the beam in there is selected. I mean, the duct in there is selected and the beams are clashing with it, right? So it's just, this is best practice for selecting or creating clash groups, right? Your step 3, you select the filtered clashes and regroup. Set the filter by selection back to none and repeat for all clashes in the test, okay? I will show you this. And now the result for a grouped clash report is what you're seeing on the screen. So in there, in this case here, if I just show you here, this floor slab would be the selected component, and everything that is clashing with it will be included in that group. Right? I hope that made sense for you. Okay. And what Revit will see that, what Revit Navisworks will see that as a one clash group, and you're able to then report on that instead of reporting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clashes. You just have one clash. Right. Another example you're seeing on here is a MEP component with columns, but that can also be seen as a group. Right. And that's another example where you've got a wall with piping going through the wall, and that's also seen as a group as well. Right. Now, once those groups are saved, your interface, remember previously you had clash 1, clash 2, clash 3, clash 4, which is a clash between 2 components, right? In this case here, you're going to see you got a clash between, you got your different group names, and this just makes it easier once again to navigate through your model. Right, I'm going to take you through creating clash groups, right, and also saving them as viewpoints, and then also adding comments to those clash groups, right? And I think we're almost there, but if you have questions, please do not hesitate to contact us, okay? I mean, and also just type in your questions on there as well, right? Okay, I'm just going to my screen. Right, so I hope you guys can see the screen. Okay, perfect. Cool. Right, so what you're seeing on the screen there is a clash report with single clashes, right? When I say single clashes, I mean clashes between two items. Okay, so in this case, it's a clash between a wall and a beam, right? And now what we're going to do here, we know that in this scenario here, there are other beams that are clashing on that wall. So we're going to group those clashes and make them a clash group, right? So you basically select all the clashes. The top of the screen there, I clicked on that little icon. You can also click on new group. Navisworks will allow you to rename this as a new group. And if we set it to hide other, you'll notice in this case here, we just selected everything onto new group. Now I've clicked on a wall. I'm just gonna go back so you see exactly what's happening here. Right, so we selected all those clashes in that clash report, right? Once that was saved as an overall group, we're able to go into the clashes, hide the rest of the model, and this is where I was showing you where we're talking about selecting an object and making sure it includes everything that it clashes with it, right? So in this case here, I clicked on that object that has items that are clashing with it, right? In your dialog box, we went and set that to inclusive. This then only shows clashes on the selected object, right? So we went and clicked on that component, set that to inclusive, right? And when you click on inclusive, what Navisworks will do, it will only give you the clashes, that the objects that are clashing on the component that's selected. We then group it, call it MEP versus structural framing. Okay, then I don't know if you noticed that. I right-clicked on that camera there, and we saved that view, right? Obviously for this, when we go back to this clash, you can obviously just click on the camera and it'll go back to that view. And then set it back to none. Now you'll notice when you click on the different groups, Navisworks just goes back to that view. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Other uses for class grouping is for spatial coordination. I don't know if you guys do know this, but you can, especially for those architects doing a lot of retail work, right? You can use your room command in Revit or your spaces and use them for coordination in Navisworks, right? So in this case, what we're seeing here, we're seeing different spaces in red and the walls and the structural model around it, and we're seeing where you got columns and walls going into different spaces. Okay, that's another use for Navisworks clash detection. What about things that don't physically clash? Right. Navisworks has a walkthrough function, Remember I mentioned earlier that it's not a realistic walkthrough, right? So if you've got an item, in this case, we've got a fire hydrant and a railing going past it, but they don't really clash, right? You can pick that up using your walkthroughs command, right? And also using your realistic views, right? Navisworks is also used for clash avoidance, right? And for that, you could use BIM 360 Glue on site as well, right? And in this case, you push models from Revit onto BIM 360 Glue. Remember, Glue does not replace Navisworks. It is the way we explain it. Glue is literally Navisworks in the cloud, right? And you can still go through the same process that we went through using your BIM 360 Glue account, right? In this case, your interface is a bit different, right? The interface that you're seeing on the screen, that's on an iPad, right? And what you're seeing on there, this is just your navigator. So you can imagine walking around with this iPad or your mobile device inside a building and able to actually see where the clashes are, right? Once all that is done, we then go into reporting, okay? And obviously, if it cannot be measured, it cannot be improved, right? So with your reporting, there's a few settings that you need to do. And the little dialog box that you're seeing on the screen there is taken from your clash detective dialog box. The workflow we went through the rules, right? Where we selected your rules for your clash. We clicked on select, where we specified what we actually want to run a clash from. The results tab popped up with your clashes, and that's where we did all the groups, and then generate a report. When you click on that report tab, you're able to specify the contents that you want to show in your report, right? Obviously, you need to think about it a little bit. Instead of just showing a whole lot of columns and fields, just specify the contents that you want to see only, right? You can also specify your options, right? In this case, you can specify which clashes you'd want to include. You can include clashes only from clash groups with group headers only. And at the bottom there, you can also specify which statuses you'd like to show in your report. And like I mentioned earlier, I've got a new clash, active, reviewed, approved, or resolved, right? And that's your statuses to be included. You then specify the report type, right? And then specify the format of report that you'd like to use. And then at the end, you then click on Write Report. Once you've clicked on Write Report, the most common report that we use is an HTML tabular report. Basically saves the images in a folder and creates an HTML link right to it. And then you can share these or PDF these and share and send them out to your consultant. Okay, right? And your report will come with the image, the clash name, the status, and all the information that are assigned to it. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. Right. So I always put this on the screen here, right? Designers have no access to Navisworks Manage, right? And when you're working on a project in your office setup, right, you need to have a dedicated person for coordination. Not everyone should go onto our Navisworks model, a coordination model, to just start doing their own clashes, right? Ideally, your BIM manager in your organization would deal with Navisworks and setting up all those viewpoints, etc. Right? And I'm going to stop there. Still have time for questions and answers, right? If you have any questions, please type them in, right? And I will address it immediately. However, if you don't have any questions right now, you're more than welcome to drop us an email, and I will either create a meeting where I can come to your office and show you a bit of Navisworks in detail. I know I didn't go through simulation and timelining and stuff, and hour is just not enough to go through a demonstration of all the functions for Navisworks, right? but there will be other sessions coming up next month for your different capabilities of Navisworks. Okay, do you have questions? Okay, thanks, Sydney. There was a question here. Which one is included in the AEC collection? Right, so when you purchase your AEC collection, you get Navisworks Manage, which comes with Navisworks Freedom as well. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions? Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed the session, right? Like I mentioned, those are our contact details, right? You are more than welcome to pop into our office. You can call us into the office. You can email Baker Baynes. If you email info@Baker Baynes, I will get the email directly. Or you could also you could also email me, right? You can send me an email, right? I'll just include my email on there as well, so you can see it. Just give me a second. I'll give you my direct email. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to pop me an email as well. Okay. Okay, there we go. Right. Right. So that's my email address. So if you have any questions around Navisworks and coordination, you're more than welcome to drop me an email and I will be able to answer you. Right. Thank you for your time. You will be receiving a certificate of attendance for this session. Our webinars are not yet CPD accredited yet. We are working on that with the different institutes. Thank you so much.